There is one woman who has made a difference in the life of every person in this church. And I'm not referring to the Blessed Mother. I'm talking about Joanne Scheibel. In 1954, she was a young, unmarried college student who discovered that she was pregnant. In the 1950s, of course, her options were limited. She could have an abortion, but of course that procedure would be very, very dangerous and illegal. She could have gotten married, but she wasn't ready yet, and she didn't want to interrupt her education. So Joanne opted to have the child instead, to give birth to the baby, and then to put the baby up for adoption. And so it was that in 1955, a California couple by the name of Paul and Clara Jobs adopted a little baby boy, born out of wedlock, and they named him Stephen. We know him today as Stephen Jobs. It would not be overstating things to say that Steve Jobs is probably my generation's Thomas Edison. He knew what the world wanted before we had it. He knew what we wanted it, and he invented it. If you have an iPhone, an iPad, or an iPod, or anything I at all, it was invented by Steve Jobs. If your world has been transformed by the ability to hear music on a little tiny device, send a letter, pay a bill, deposit a check, read a book, and then buy theater tickets on something roughly the size of a credit card, thank Steve Jobs. And you can thank his mother, Joanne Scheibel. If you want to know how much one life can matter, that's just one example. One example of what one life can do. Imagine if an unmarried pregnant college student had made a different choice. What would our world be like today? The horrifying truth is this: we live now in a culture that not only does not respect life, but it discards life. And I'm not only talking about the beginning of life. It's happening now in our world at all stages, even with the elderly. What has happened to us? In Europe, there's a new industry called suicide tourism for people who are old or infirm and they want to kill themselves. What's happened to us? Life has become so disposable. In the New York Times a while ago, there was a long article about the practice called singleton, where women who were pregnant found that they maybe had twins or triplets. One or two of those children could be aborted in order to better manage the size of their family. And we don't talk about it often today, but I think it needs to be said. The reason why we don't see as many children anymore with Down syndrome isn't because of some great miracle that has taken place. It isn't because of some medical invention or breakthrough. No, it's roughly because 90% of them are being aborted. What has happened to us? If you listen closely, the gospel this Sunday, in one sense, is about respecting life. It brings us that familiar saying about the stone that the builders rejected. Oh, we have rejected many stones, more lives than we can count. And when will it end? Even here now in our own state, look at what has happened through our legislation. It's increasingly clear that the only lasting change will happen when we work to change not only laws, but when we work to change hearts in our world. Abortion will end when we teach our children that nothing, no one is ever discarded. Remember that story of the multiplication of the loaves and the fishes in the scriptures? Remember that multiplication, and when Christ performed that great miracle for those 5,000 people, it didn't end when everyone ate. It ended when the people gathered up every single crumb, because every crumb was part of that miracle. No one, no thing, no life is wasted in the incredible work of God. He's given us life because we all have a purpose. We all have a meaning. Abortion will end when we acknowledge that life is inconvenient and difficult and unplanned. But nothing and no one is ever unplanned or unwanted when the one doing the planning and the wanting is God. Abortion will end when we realize at last that love is greater than fear. It will end when we see life not as a problem to be solved, but as a gift, a great gift to be embraced. It will end when we simply choose life, beautiful, chaotic, unpredictable, explosive, crazy life. Life isn't something to be discarded because it's difficult, or inconvenient, or unexpected, or old, or sick. It's so much greater than we can even realize. By changing how we talk about life, by changing how we treat life, how we teach life to our children, we'll begin to change hearts. We'll begin to change minds. Respect life is more than just a catchphrase. It needs to be a way of living. Respect life, not just in the womb, but everywhere, at every time, in every circumstance, within our families, our communities, the place we work, the place we do business. It means treating every life with dignity and honoring every life as a gift. Doing that moment by moment will begin to change our culture, and heart by heart will begin to change our world for life.